Hey everyone, welcome to the Solution Stack. I am your host, Richard Rodriguez. I'm joined today by Aqeel Shahid, SVP of Channel Sales for IntelePeer. Aqeel, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Richard. How are you doing? Thanks for
Good,
having me.
doing well. Thanks for joining us and taking the time. Um, Most of us that are in the channel know IntelePeer, but we have a lot of viewers and listeners who aren't really familiar with IntelePeer. So why don't you start off by giving us the overview of what IntelePeer, who IntelePeer is, and what you guys do?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to join you here today. But for those of you that have been in the channel for some time, obviously IntelliPeer has been around for the last 20-25 years, right? So we're not new to the channel. We're not new to the industry. We've been providing, services to the channel for a long time. Where our legacy historically has been over the last, I guess you want to say 20 plus years, has been in the SIP and connectivity side of the house. That's where where we originally started as an organization. That's kind of our legacy. And, over the last, 5-6 years, we've kind of been, pivoting away from the SIP services and kind of evolved into who we are today, which is primarily providing AI and automation solutions for organization. That's kind of the evolution that we've gone as an organization. And so, today, we are a AI automation company. That's our core focus as a company. That's kind of where we're 100% engaged towards.
So it's really taking the legacy businesses that you guys had in terms of, whether it was, it's all the acronyms have gone through an evolution, right? So they've gone from, your basic connectivity all the way into kind of CX, and now you're taking kind of CX and that customer experience to the next level with AI, correct?
Correct. Yep. Absolutely.
And so this whole journey for you guys started, 2, 3 years ago. I know you have partnerships with primary partnerships, even though you can use any of the LLMs, but primarily partnerships with OpenAI and Azure, correct?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the going back to the history again, for being a SIP provider, we also have the CPaaS infrastructure and the CPaaS technology within our platform as well, and then obviously now where we are today, which is CX AI side of the house. But yeah, we do leverage, yeah, to your point, multiple different large language models. Primarily, we'll use OpenAI and Azure in our private cloud for the large language model. And we can obviously insert any of the LLMs that if a customer prefers a specific LLM, we can certainly leverage them depending on the outcome, depending on what they're trying to accomplish.
And that's key. You said a key word that's top of mind for everybody right now, and that's privacy, right? So if you could talk a little bit about, what IntelliPeer does, that on the privacy side of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we know the data is critical, right? Because in order for us to apply any kind of AI solutions, we need to have access to the data, but we also understand the sensitivity around the data as well. So we've taken all the appropriate measures to make sure that data remains private. We are GDPR compliant, SOC 2 compliant, right? We HIPAA, high trust, all the appropriate elements that are needed in the space from a compliance and privacy perspective. The key elements that we ensure is that every customer that we work with, their data set is kept 100% private and siloed, right? So we're not training other customers, or the data that we get from a customer is not used to train other customers, solutions, right? So it's 100% segregated. It is in our private Azure cloud, so that information isn't sitting out in the public anywhere. And when we access the data, right, all we're doing is we're reading from that data and using that to basically provide the AI functionality and writing back into whatever CRM, EMR, EHR, ERP system that our organization may be leveraging today. But we're not storing anything on our network. We're reading and writing right back into the customer's core, systems of record. So that way, we don't have to worry about the privacy aspect from a credit card perspective, or even financial perspective. Right, we are PCI compliant as well. So if someone's giving out a credit card, information, all that's automatically redacted and stored in that manner too. So none of that information sits out there publicly. So We pay extra sensitivity towards the privacy aspect. And then when we create these automation aspects for our customers, we'll put in the appropriate guardrails to make sure that the responses that are coming back from the AI agent is actually in line, so it isn't going out there and hallucinating and coming up with some responses you don't want it to come out with as well. So we've taken all the appropriate measures to make sure that it's delivering the results that customers want.
Awesome. That's great. As I said, that's always top of mind, and usually one of the first questions that we get asked as people, begin their AI journey. And I think it's a good place to start, because everybody's at a different spot in their AI journey. So I would say, walk us through, if a customer comes to you and says, and it could be anything, because you guys serve, medical and healthcare, financial services. There is some oil and gas, clients that you've had, a lot of retail, logistics. But IntelePeer serves across the board. But let's just say that I'm a client, and you have a general one for now, and they say, "Hey, I want to start. I like the platform." How does a customer go about the process of beginning their AI journey with IntelePeer?
Yeah, that's a great question, Richard. So when you talk about AI, it's such a big buzzword, right? Everyone's talking about it, but nobody really knows how to even start that journey, right? Where do we even start? And also exactly how is this impacting my business, or how will it impact my business? So really, what we do is when we come into an organization from an engagement perspective, where a customer comes to us and goes, "Hey, I want to use AI in my business, and tell me more." And so our first question usually is like, to do what? What is the business outcome that you're trying to accomplish? Tell us more about the business outcome, right? So we will usually start with the business outcome that the customer is trying to accomplish and work backwards from there, right? So if it's, say, I would like to reduce the time my agents take on a call, or I want to improve my customer experience, or I want to reduce the time that a customer is sitting on hold, and whatever that a business outcome is they're trying to accomplish, then we can go backwards from there and go, okay, now let's identify those specific intents, right? What element of the call can we really go automate? And so what we do is we'll come in and do what we call an AI intent study, which is basically our ability to come in and essentially analyze all the data that customer has. So we come in and we'll basically analyze the different elements of the conversation, right? So we'll ingest in all the call recordings that a customer may have, or the data that they have, and our engine will basically go in and scrub through all that stuff and go, okay, 80% of your calls that you're getting are coming in from customers that are calling in to check on the status of an order, or they're calling in because they have an issue with a specific product and they're calling about that specific issue. Or when they're coming in, they're usually pretty heated, and by the time they exit, they're happy, right? So we're able to capture all the appropriate data, and then that gives us a starting point that we can go back to the customer and go, okay, I see that 80% of the calls are coming in for X reason. Now let's put some ROI metrics around this, right? How is this impacting your business? What are some of the key KPIs that you want to measure to be able to prove success, right? So defining what success looks like. And then we embark on that journey, right? So we don't have to boil the ocean and automate everything. So we can pick one or two of the low-hanging fruit, intents that they have, start the journey there, show them the ROI with the appropriate analytics and data sets that will be able to give them, which basically allows them to really to recognize the revenue, recognize the ROI, prove within the organizations that yes, this AI is actually a real thing, not just a fad, not just another thing that everyone else is jumping on the bandwagon with, and then we can start with the next journey from there.
And then, so that's a great starting point. And especially another, kind of top of mind thing for people is, within organizations, you've got people that are early adopters that want to jump on this, and they're excited about bringing AI into an organization. You have kind of the majority that are like, well, let's wait and see. And then
Exactly.
we've got a percentage that, frankly, AI kind of scares them. Am I going to lose my job? What's this going to do? How do you help companies with the change management to get the organization ready to bring, the platform into the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so there's a lot of fear again. Hey, if I add this AI solution, how that's going to impact our organization? So we work alongside the customers to really kind of put together this change management process, right? Again, going back to what I said earlier, which is defining what the business outcome is and the impact it has, right? So if it's within a contact center organization, we can show the impact that it'll have to the agent's time now of exactly how it'll free up their time to go focus on the more critical aspects of the business versus having to deal with those. Hey, I'm calling you to reset my password. I'm calling on the status of an order and things that would normally tie them up or frequently asked questions, that kind of stuff. So we will work with all the appropriate stakeholders. Whether it's the CX leader, whether it's the CIO, the CTO, the sales organization, and we'll kind of create this journey map so that we have buy-in from all the appropriate stakeholders to ensure that they understand. Obviously AI isn't something that you set and forget. It's going to require fine tuning. It's going to require, customization as we go along the way. So we need the buy-in of all the different stakeholders to provide the appropriate feedback, to be able to continue to train this AI agent just like you would a normal human being, right? You would train it to make sure it delivers the results you want. And if you don't have the stakeholders buy-in, then you'll get resistance within. So we work through that entire process of really showing how it impacts their business, how it impacts them, how it impacts their customers, and really kind of tied back to, the productivity gains that it'll have, and then, get their buy-in that way.
Awesome. And every business is different, so this is not
Yeah.
not a question. Every industry is different. Every organization is different, size, scope, everything. But in general, what are you seeing when it comes to implementation time for most clients?
Yeah, again, yeah, another great question. When you talk about implementation, right, I see a lot of organizations that start down this AI journey, and guess what ends up happening? They get stuck, and the service never gets implemented. And so they're going, what the heck? I started this project, I'm going nowhere. So again, all the work that I mentioned that we do up front really helps us on this implementation journey, right? Because we've captured the data, we know the intent, we know the ROI, we know the KPIs as we start through the journey. So once we proceed forward with a customer, we then take that data we've already captured, use that as a baseline to really start the development and the appropriate elements that are needed to get services up and running. So on average, it takes our start to finish anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to get a customer up and running. And we on our team have our conversational designers, we have our AI engineers, we have our project managers, all the team that gets assembled once we're ready to move forward, and they're then doing the full scoping of the project, right? They're getting in deep into the weeds, gathering all the appropriate elements, and then working with the customer to really design and get it up and running, right? We'll do the initial setup, then we'll do the UAT testing alongside the customer to really make sure it's delivering what they're looking for before we go live. And then one thing I think I mentioned earlier too, because of the legacy we have in the voice side of the house, right? We're able to come alongside any current UCaaS or CCaaS solution that a customer may have today. So we don't have to rip and replace, right? So we can sit either next to, we can sit behind, or we can sit in front of any of those current solutions that they have. So it becomes easier to deploy, so they don't have to do a forklift and have to start from scratch, right? We're just augmenting what they currently already have from that perspective. And then because of the fact that we have that voice background, we can port numbers and do things way faster than any of the our other folks in the industry that are typically relying on a third-party voice carrier, right? We can do it that much quicker, faster, and have better control on the overall implementation experience. So like I said, 4 to 6 weeks is typically our normal implementation time frame, and again, depending on the use case, depending on exactly what intents we're trying to basically develop for, it'll vary. But again, there's a whole team, and again, we don't just implement and then leave, right? We have this customer success team that stays alongside the customer for the life of the customer, and they're constantly involved with fine tuning and implementation and all that fun stuff.
That's good that you brought up that you're able to work alongside, because cost is always something that's top of mind, especially with AI project. We hear many times where customers started down a particular journey, and for whatever reason, it's no fault of any provider or anything, but It either gets stuck in kind of, proof of concept, proof of concept after proof of concept, and it doesn't scale, or it doesn't take off the way that they want it to. And then next thing you know, a budget that was here winds up way out here, right? So
Right.
it's good that you brought up there's not a rip and replace, because I think that's key for a lot of the hesitation that some people may have. Um,
Yeah, exactly. And one thing on that too, really quickly, I was going to say was we don't charge upfront like most other companies do from an implementation perspective, right? So you're not writing a large check to get this journey started. It is a managed services fee, so it's a monthly fee that the customer pays, and so it's a lot more affordable, and it's not like a huge upfront investment either. And because it's a monthly fee, they have access to that team, like I said, for life. So it's not like, okay, implement now. The next time you need something done, guess what? We'll charge you again, right? You don't have any of that, so it becomes way easier, more predictable for an organization as well.
so walk us through some, because again, you guys are dealing in many sectors that we deal in. Top of mind are obviously retail, healthcare, financial services. Obviously our bread and butter, we're always a little bit biased when it comes to energy and oil and gas. If you can, if you can highlight a couple of wins that you've had in each one of those sectors, and kind of what the use case was and how it impacted them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll start with a couple, right? So the one that comes to my mind right now is in the healthcare space, right? We're seeing to your point, we're seeing success in all the core verticals, whether it's healthcare, whether it's retail, whether it's financial services, whether it's energy or utilities, right? So there's a lot of different use cases in each one of them that are very specific and unique to that specific vertical that we're trying to solve for. In the healthcare space, for example, we have this large healthcare practice, multi-location healthcare practice that has over 500 plus locations across the country. What they were challenged with was, the ability to handle the calls that were coming into their clinics to be able to provide them a seamless experience across, regardless of which clinic you called into, be able to allow for the callers that were calling in to be able to schedule appointments. That was the big use case to start it with. I want to be able to schedule appointments quickly versus them having to sit on hold, waiting to talk to a nurse or talk to a front desk person to get the appointment scheduled. Like, most patients were getting frustrated. They were hanging up. They were calling the next practice, so they were losing business that way. So that was the first intent they wanted to do, was, hey, let me take the appointment scheduling and be able to do that. And as simple as it sounds, right? It is the critical aspect, right? That's how they're able to get their business. If they can't get patients in the door, they don't make no money. So we were able to automate that entire front end journey of just from a scheduling perspective. We reduced that wait time that patients were dealing with by almost 60%. So a huge drop in the amount of wait time that they were dealing with. The front desk staff as well, we freed up their time so they could go focus on more patient experience stuff, things within the clinic that they could help with, versus sitting on phone trying to get appointment scheduled, right? So the impact was real, and that organization, we were able to basically recognize ROI in under 6 months. So from when they signed up to when they recognized ROI was just literally a 6 months journey for them. So quick, fast turnaround there, and that was the first use case that we started with, and then we added additional components with FAQs, the prescription refills. We were able to add in components from a collections perspective for them as well, so they could collect on patients that were past due. So a lot of different use cases that we added along the way, but that ended up being a sizable opportunity for us. This customer actually was close to almost a $1.2 million ARR sales, so a good size investment. But again, they recognized ROI in 6 months, so all the additional benefits that they got. So that's one example, right? In the retail, in the other verticals that you could think of, like, because in retail, we see a lot of times people are calling in to basically place an order. They want to basically check on the status of an order. They want to basically find out times when the appropriate stores are open. Again, all the time that would normally take a live person can now is we were able to come in and automate. So there's a large retail chain that we were able to come in and help automate about 60% of their calls by taking by doing FAQs and office hours. Were the two things, and then opening up tickets for, if they had issues with their with a specific product, they could literally open up tickets right on the phone itself versus having to talk to a live person. Now, depending on how complex the issue was, we could be able to help troubleshoot some of that over the phone. But if it was more complicated, then send it to a live agent with the context so that the live agent can then basically start off where the virtual agent left off as well. So that was another area where we were able to really make a big impact on, and specific to the utilities and the energy side of the house, right? Again, that's another area where we have this one large utility organization that basically was looking to implement a solution that would allow for customers to call in to pay their bills, but also be able to call in if there's an outage in the area, to be able to open up tickets and check on the status of the outage as well. So essentially, again, that area that normally people will call in when there's a storm running through, right? And they're like, oh my God, when is my power going to be turned on, right? And so they could call in, have a live agent basically go, yes, I understand, Richard, I can see your area is impacted. Our crew's out there working on it right now. Here's your estimated time of repair, so, again, you don't have to sit there and wait to talk to somebody to get the same response that the AI agent can give you. And then if you're calling in to pay a bill or be able to do change your address or whatever the case is, all that we're able to automate and take that front end, mundane tasks that would tie a live agent, and be able to automate that element. So those are some examples of what we were able to do for some organizations. And again, like I said, the use cases are intense. The same application can be applied in multiple different use cases along the way, including the financial services, where we're able to have our AI agent use means to do voice biometric scan to authenticate the person to make sure that they are who they say they are, be able to use that as a means to also, validate and do payment and updates from an account perspective, that kind of stuff.
So, you keep mentioning voice, which is still a key component, but there are, as generations change, there are people who, prefer to communicate by text or by social channels, other things. And, talk about how IntelePeer is able to wrap those into the solution as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Richard. You're right. I did keep saying voice because when you talk about AI agents, right, a lot of people have digital figured out because it's easy, right? Digital channels, don't require the same level of response that voice does, right? People are more sensitive to voice conversations. It's harder to do voice because it's real time versus digital that, you can respond, if it's a little delayed when an AI bot's responding to you, you're fine. You're trained for it, right? So with digital channels, we can do it. And so when we talk about, the different mediums that we can automate, it's voice, it is SMS, it's chat, it's email, right? There's all the appropriate mechanisms and mediums that a customer or a patient or whatever the case is may use to communicate. They all kind of follow similar journeys back into our system. Voice, like I said, is the most sensitive, real time, right? So people typically want a response quick. So if I ask a question, I don't want to sit there and wait for a response back. They're normally going to hang up, right? So most organizations don't have the ability to really automate the voice portion well, right? And so that's where they struggle. We obviously have that figured out because of our legacy, right? We can respond back within milliseconds, so a person doesn't have to sit there and wait for a response back and get frustrated.
That's all great stuff. All great stuff. I think one last thing as we kind of wrap up talking about the solution and all the benefits that are there. I think one thing too that came up was a lot of people have fear that, okay, once we hit go, I'm kind of by myself after this, right? You talked about that client success team that's there, post go live and then continuing as they can be a customer. It doesn't just end, when the implementation is done. If you could talk more about sort of those customer success teams, what do they see, what do they see and how do they work with the client, not only for the day-to-day support that's going to happen, but again, you talked about, AI needs, the model continuously needs to be trained. There are updates.
Absolutely.
A business itself may change, if they acquire another business and have to bring something in, or a business process can change.
Yeah.
Or, making recommendations based on what you guys are seeing as the, kind of the real data starts to come in, and because the business will change, right? There was preset for before this happened, and then the business is obviously going to change, and they can focus on different things as the solution provides what it says it's going to provide, right?
Yeah, no, great points, and yeah, no, I agree with you. Right? There's a constant evolution that happens that is continuing to happen with organizations, and that's why, like I said earlier, this isn't a set it and forget it solution, because it's going to continue to evolve based on the business needs and changes that are happening. And so that's what the client success team is doing, right? It's not just, they're not there just for the, hey, let me open up a ticket, I got an issue and that kind of stuff, right? They're there to help make sure that, the business outcomes that were initially discussed when we started on that journey is actually recognized. The KPIs and the ROI that we discussed that your organization was going to accomplish is actually realized, right? So they're there as true optimization consultants to help the organization optimize the AI deployment, optimize how the organization's leveraging those, and to continue to refine the process and continue to train and fine tune this thing based on those changes that the organization is going through, right? So yeah, they're not there just to deal with open issues. They're there to help be a consultant with the organization alongside. So as new business challenges come up, identify what they are, go through the same journey again of identifying those business outcomes, KPIs, and then going and setting up the AI solution to accomplish those as well. And then along with the metrics, right? They're also helping the customer build the appropriate dashboards, right? So within our platform, we have this tool called Smart Analytics that really gives a complete cradle to grave view for the customer, right? So all the way from when a customer reaches out, whether phone call, email, text, whatever the mechanism is, and then what happens, right? Where does that journey goes? What are some of the key points that are being discussed? What does their sentiment look like, right? How long did it take? If a call gets sent to a live agent, what did the live agent do? How long did they take to resolve the issue? And then what was the sentiment when they exited, right? All that journey, the 360 view is now captured, and that gives the customer success team the ability then to work alongside the customer to really go, okay, here's the data set of what we're seeing. Here's some additional areas that we can now consider to really help continue to optimize the solution as well.
No, that's really key, especially when you talk about sentiment, right? Because most times if somebody's reaching out, they have a problem, they're already somewhat annoyed,
Already heated, yeah.
and that temperature continues to go up. So
Right.
you talk a little bit more about how, what IntelliPeer does, kind of to do that sentiment analysis, and how you've seen that change after the solutions in place.
Yeah, it's interesting. 3 to 4 years ago, when people would call and you would be greeted by an AI agent, what would be the first reaction for us? Operator, right? We're usually always screaming, operator, try to get out of that thing, right? And so that was the legacy early days of AI, right? More like a IVA, right? Interactive, voice agent kind of stuff. Well, today, because the system is so far, improved now, where it sounds like a live human, it is far more responsive. It has empathy built in, has all the appropriate elements, with different voices and tones and inflections, all the stuff. We're finding, right? But when a person calls now into the organization and agree with the AI agent, they're far more receptive to talk to it. They're not immediately responding, with the operator request. They're going through the interaction. So all that data, that all that information now is captured with the intent. So we can see, okay, when they come in, or with the analytics tool, so we can see exactly what their sentiment is when they come in. And then throughout the journey, how it stays. And we will typically score it from 1 to 5, right? 1 being, yes, he's chill, no problem. 5 being, I'm heated, I want to talk to somebody now, right? And so immediately we can see, okay, this person is extremely heated. It may not be best for me to even put them through the AI agent. Let me capture some basic information and get them to a live person right away, because they're heated. Those are the escalation calls that will go right up the top. And the ones that are, in the 3-ish range, that are not, they're heated, but not really heated, but they're okay. They're just frustrated, right? So we can go them through the journey, get them through through the resolution. And then, depending throughout the call, if their voice starts getting, or their responses start getting heated, then we can escalate it as well. So, that's kind of how the system is automatically in real time making those decisions based on the responses they're getting back and the conversation that's happening to determine when the call needs to be hand off or if it's okay where we are right now to be able to get the customer through the journey that they're calling in for.
Awesome. I think it's really exciting to see the journey, that has come through, like you said, 3 or 4 years ago to where, where technology is now and how it's being implemented and actually getting put to real use cases. If people want to learn more about IntelePeer, what's your website?
Yeah, they can come visit our website, IntelePeer.ai. And there's a lot of great information on there, lots of good videos, white papers, testimonials that are out there that they can certainly look through. They can always obviously reach out to us as well. They can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn or work through you. I mean, we certainly, if they have questions, will come through you as well. And you know how to find me.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Aqeel, again, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. For our listeners out there, our viewers, thank you for your support. This episode will drop live on, Spotify, YouTube, all the normal channels that you watch us on. Thank you all for your feedback and your continued support. Again, Aqeel, appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.